Happy Friday, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Procurement Foundry's Tenure Talk. In this series, we chat with seasoned leaders who are willing to share priceless nuggets about their path to their success. This session of Tenure Talk is being sponsored by Workday. My name is Tina Marie Noble, and I'm the Director of Community Development for Procurement Foundry. And today we have Berri Hines. Berri is the Director of Supply Chain Procurement and Supplier Diversity for Prisma Health. Welcome, Berri. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hi, Tina. Thank you.
How are you? So I know this is going to be great because you were on one of our TLEs, our thought leader events earlier in the year, and that was a fantastic event. So I know this discussion is going to be great and full of information. I appreciate you being here with us. Nice to see you again.
Thank you for the invite.
All right, so let's kick this off. So the first question I'm going to ask is a tough one. Please tell me about yourself and your current role.
So as you stated, and thank you again, Tina Marie, for the invite. I am the Director of Supply Chain Procurement and Supplier Diversity. I'm responsible essentially for the team who sources all of the medical and surgical supplies for the health system, which spans across about half the counties in South Carolina. We have just over 2,800 licensed beds across 18 hospitals, a little over 300 physician practices. And I have a team of 23 buyers, purchasing agents, and customer service representatives, and one purchasing manager who report to me. And essentially, we are the largest health system in South Carolina. So I explain to people who are not in healthcare, my team is the team that's responsible for procuring all the goods that a doctor or nurse might have used on you or implanted in you. That comes through my team. So it certainly keeps us very, very busy. And then that's the procurement side. And then the supplier diversity side, it's a personal passion that I have the privilege of marrying with my career, which is making sure that we are intentionally inclusive in our procurement strategies with regard to our diverse suppliers, minority-owned, women-owned, veteran-owned, and LGBTQ+ owned businesses, and really just making sure that their voices are at the table. I'm very clear that you have to sharpen your pencil, but it's my responsibility to make sure that they do get to that table and that we are intentionally inclusive about that.
Wow, you have a big plate to fill. It sounds like really busy with a big team and two very big, important roles that it's really amazing that you put them together. It's definitely a big feat. I appreciate all that hard work because I know the medical industry, we've learned so much in the past. You don't realize how much is involved, right, with the supply chain of it. And that's impressive. I appreciate that. Number two, what is the one unique thing you would like to share about yourself?
I think this is pretty unique. Is everything I've dealt with in my life, I have not seen anyone replicate this. I came to Prisma Health 13 years ago when it was actually Greenville Hospital System. I was a volunteer seeking employment. I was unemployed courtesy of the Great Recession of 2009. And I had lost my job in residential construction back in Texas. Consequently, because all things recession, I lost my home, I lost all my savings, and I had to start over. College educated, already had my career well on its way, and my sister and her family offered their home up to me to just start over, rebuild my career and my network. So I came to South Carolina with my then spouse at the time and my 2 dogs and a cat. And we lived in her basement for what I thought would be 6 months. So I got a storage unit for 6 months, which turned into 3.5 years. Living in her 2-room plus a bathroom basement while I rebuilt my entire network, my career, our savings, everything. And so I came to Prisma Health, again, then Greenville Hospital System, to fulfill a personal passion while trying to rebuild my network. And that's human service. I love working with people. I love serving time, talent, and treasure. I had no treasure anymore, so I was working on the time part. So I thought if I can volunteer I thought I would probably maybe work with patients, just maybe transport or something where I could continue to fulfill that personal need. And when they saw my resume, which already had 10 years of purchasing experience from construction, they said, well, the supply chain department does need a receptionist. So I interviewed for the volunteer position. This was all coordinated through volunteer services. And when I saw the, I'm not going to say it was an ERP system, it was a DOS-based procurement system. I had just come off of that, funny enough, a DOS-based system. And I decided to make a move. And I said, I'll tell you what, I will answer phones for you 40 hours a week, unpaid, indefinitely, if you give me an opportunity to interview for the next open position. And I had already, through the first 10 minutes, figured out who the office mother was. We'll call her the office mother, the office hen that knows all the things. And that's, everyone should know who you should befriend in the office. And so I knew there were 2 retirements coming up even before my interview. And so the interviewer, who ended up being my boss, wisely took me up on that. And I was confident in my skill set. And within 2 weeks, they saw my professionalism, they saw my skills, and they said, we want to stop you from looking for employment. So how can we do that? So they brought me on as a temp so that I would at least scale back my job search. And that was about August of 2009. And I became a full-time buyer by January of 2010. And I have advanced 5 positions from there. And I'm now the director of that department. And the man that interviewed me, we grew up together basically in this particular hospital. And so he's now my vice president.
Wow, what a 2 different worlds. What would make you think construction, and the healthcare could have anything in common? But I guess, I don't mean to say buying is buying, but if you have the skill, right, to do that, that's great. That's amazing that those 2, that you never would have thought construction would have opened your door to healthcare, right? And then you have that. You probably in construction had some human
purchase orders, that common language.
Now it's, right, exactly.
Terms and conditions,
awesome.
POs. I was an estimator. My last position was an estimator, so I knew how to estimate fun things like granite and tile and things like that, and how to design a house. So and my professionalism helped me too. My first job when I was 15, I was a receptionist at a dermatologist's office, and so I knew how to answer phones. I had the sound, the approach that they were looking for. Be kind, be appreciative, be humble, and so the skill married up with that, it worked out, and it was a calculated risk on my part because I was getting unemployment from the state of Texas. So I had nothing to lose. I had everything to bank on my own self, and I said, I know I can do this. And so I humbled myself.
And I bet you they were really happy that they took the chance on you, right? And they were like,
I hope so. I mean, they kept me around.
Yeah, so it paid off.
They keep giving me responsibility, so I guess it's working.
So like, give it to her, give it to Berri, she'll do it.
Pretty much.
In your own home, do you ever wrap in the construction? You learn in that field things about the construction areas that you could say, oh, this is what I should be paying for granite? Like, did you find yourself wrapping it into?
Every house I've bought since then has already been spec'd out, so I didn't have a chance. My next one, hopefully I'll get a chance to design, but I was very familiar with punching out and your final walkthrough and things to look for and certain terminology that, kind of, again, it's more of a male dominated field, and so is supply chain on this side. So I get to come out of left field with all of these, construction jargon or supply chain jargon, and it definitely catches people by surprise. Which I love. It's a sick thrill for me.
It was a movie, Cousin Vinny, right? Did you see Cousin Vinny when she does that with the cars? That's what you're probably like in, and just laying the land with all these guys.
Completely underestimated. So it's sort of my secret weapon, I suppose.
That's so funny. I'd love to be a fly in the wall one time and watch that. That would be funny. All right, here we go. So number 3, Who was the one person, coach, mentor, or former boss who has helped you most in your career? And what did you learn from them? Now, one thing that I added with one of the last interviews is they had the gentleman had a group of people that influenced them. So if it's a group of people that influenced you, feel free to list that. But who was your most influencing person in your growth to where you are?
Yeah. Hands down, my father. Sometimes it feels cliche, but I personally think that my father hung the moon. And
Mine does too.
yeah, my father and my mother is very much a presence in my life. She taught me different skills, but as far as how to conduct myself in the workplace, how to show up for myself and to show up for others in the workplace, how to treat others. This one is a big one for me, how to treat others with respect, whether it be the janitor or the CEO, how to be disciplined, how to be firm, but compassionate. My father taught me all of those things. And my being a girl at the time, of course, but my being female was not a factor in his teachings for me. He wanted me to be able to rely on myself, my skills, my intelligence, my wit, my heart, and my ethics to lead me in my life. And of course, some of this bleeds into my own personal life, just how I hold myself as a person. But he wanted me to rely on the things that I could control, like the ones I just mentioned, as opposed to superficial things that I have no control over. And he was very firm about that. He could see as a young snot-nosed teenager, I was valuing sometimes the wrong thing, and he would check me on it. And he would say, look, these things over here can be taken away from you in a heartbeat, but this stuff over here that you hone in on, your intelligence and your heart, your personality, that's you, that's who you are. And I never forgot that. It was very humbling. He's the wisest person I know, the most practical, the most disciplined, and he does it all with heart. He was very, very firm in how we were raised. We had all the curfews and, speak kindly to mom and all those things, but he also, and I got punished, and the things I got caught for, I got punished for. I pushed the boundaries. I was the youngest and I pushed the boundaries. But my father, he saw the wild side in me, and he worked very hard to make sure that I stayed grounded and humbled. And when we went to college, my sister was a year ahead of me, and he did the same thing with her. He sent us to college with a list of one page. Now we're going back to the 90s now, a one-page printed out italic, I don't remember which font it was, but we had very few back then, list of practical advice for us, and it was called Fast Track Fundamentals, and it was a whole list of. And I actually,
I hope you still have it.
This is the original, and
great.
It's sage advice, things that are practical for many of us, but one that I've never forgotten, of course, is be as nice to the janitor as you are to the CEO. Things like always assume no one can or will keep a secret. Always go to the company party. Don't ever get drunk at the company party. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. The difference is you. And just a whole list. I mean, I could go on and on about the list, but I keep it with me. When I was working on site in the offices, I had it pinned up in my office. Always be prepared to know what you would do if I lost my job tomorrow. It's words that I have always lived by, and he still lives by those words. And he has hands down made me the career woman that I am, and making him proud, honestly, is one of the greatest joys of my life. When I first became a supervisor / manager, that was my first step into a more of a leadership role. He said, the one bit of advice I will give you is, this is the first time in your entire career that you will be responsible for the quality of someone else's work. And I never forgot that. He's right. I am now responsible for 23 other people's work, not my own. And that has driven how I conduct myself in the workplace. I'm firm, but I'm fair, and I am compassionate. And so it's always, what would Bob do? And it's Bob with one O, he's careful to say.
That's awesome. That's so great. What a person to look up to. To go by these words. And that, does your sister still? Does she go by them too? And it helped with her?
Oh yeah, she and I are very similar in how we conduct ourselves. We're very different personalities. I'm the typical extrovert. I'm an A-type extrovert, and she's more of an introvert. But the life lessons that he's imparted upon us carry us, really throughout our lives. He has wanted us to be, of course, he wants us to find love and happiness. I mean, everyone wants that, if that is what that person, if that's what I want. But there are things outside of that I can control, and relying on myself, honing in on my own grit. These are things that I can control. He taught me how to change my own oil in my car. He taught me how to change my own tire. Now, I don't change my own oil, but I know how to.
But if you have to, you could.
I would, and I would change my own tire if I had to. Love and happiness outside of that comes, but he always focused on controlling me, who I am, how I am, how I show up in the community, and being able to do that and have a father that can still be around to watch me do those things at 46 it's an honor. It really is. We have a monthly daddy-daughter lunch that I started several months ago.
Does he live near
Yes,
you?
he's 6 miles away. Yeah. And
so great.
The last lunch, I brought a whole drill bit set to lunch because I was working on this project. I was fixing something, and I like to do it myself. And so I wanted his advice on which drill bit I should use for this specific type of bolt I was using. And so I'm the daughter that shows up at lunch with a drill bit in her Kate Spade purse.
That is so great. And I'm sure you believe that everything that he taught you helped you, and that when you lost your job and had to start again, this is it. This is what I know what I have to do to survive.
He's been knocked down too before, and he's relied on himself and his grit to get back up. And I've watched him do that over the years. He had a solid tenure when I was mostly growing up, but I remember some of the other stories. And then later in life, when I was in college, he had lost his job, and I've learned from that. I learned, when we decided to leave Texas, he was the first one I consulted. I said, Dad, we're struggling without my then husband's, he lost his job first. He made them more money. And so we were trying to figure out what to do. And my dad was the first one that gave us permission mentally to not pay that mortgage. He says, Berri, you can't bail water out of a sinking ship. He says, this is what I would do. We FaceTimed, we went over our expenses, and he says, you're bailing water out of a sinking ship. He said, come on home. And so, yeah, he has been instrumental in every aspect of my life. My mother has too. I know they'll see this, so I want to make sure my mom is very much a presence.
Absolutely.
But as far as,
very much parts of you, right?
Yeah.
Together they built you, right? So it's
absolutely
different parts.
Yeah.
That's so sweet. That's amazing. I love that. I really love that. So now I didn't want to go on to any more questions. I want to stop at that because that was a perfect story. What is the most innovative thing you've seen in your space in the past 12 months?
So I feel like this is a cliche answer, but it really, for us, it's the best one, because healthcare, we have certainly had to innovate. But for me, it really was moving my team to 100% remote work. We were all, of course, on premise, and healthcare is slower to innovate when it comes to staffing. And I mean, when you're in acute care, when you're a clinician, you obviously have to be on site, short of telemedicine. So it's a new concept. And a little less than a year before the pandemic hit, I was trying to update our inclement weather policy, which was very, very rigid, and it did not allow for folks like my team to miss a day of work during inclement weather. And I thought, if I can get them laptops, they really can do it. They just need a telephone or a cell phone, and they can do the work. So I was working on relaxing that inclement weather policy. So fortunately, they already had laptops. I was gearing us towards that. And when the pandemic hit and everybody was sent home, I stayed back at the warehouse with the rest of the leadership, kind of like the captain of the ship, and sent my staff home. And at the same time, we were merging. So Greenville Health System was merging with Palmetto Health to become Prisma Health. So we had the two largest health systems merging to become the largest health system in South Carolina. We went live with Workday on the same day of that merger, and we did it during a global pandemic, and we did it virtually because of the travel ban. So it was exhausting. That in and of itself is innovation, all of those things. I was on the COVID response team from a supply standpoint, and I was on the Workday implementation team. So my time was very split. And I had this whole team. I was becoming a director at the same time. So I was inheriting people I hadn't even met yet. And cohesivity, if that's a word, the glue that I knew my department had in the upstate, I didn't know what that would look like in the future. And so obviously for all the reasons that we all already know, the team needed to stay remote, and they are still remote because it works. But what I ended up doing was we were starting to use the Microsoft Teams technology, of course. And I ended up, and I'm still evolving it. I actually added a new layer today, but I have several channels. I have a whole procurement team channel. Everybody must be a member of it. You must participate. And I have it broken up in hierarchies. I have Workday questions. So when we're live with Workday, obviously there's going to be a ton of questions. So I have a whole Workday channel. I have a general, just general questions, comments, not related to Workday, personnel updates, benefit changes, things like that. I have a pop quiz channel, and that was so that I can continue to gauge folks' understanding. And it's never punitive, but I need you to tell me what the answer is to this real life scenario that I just witnessed. And then 24 hours later, I would give them the correct answer, but I want full engagement on that. I have a water cooler channel. So if you want to send us pictures of your grandbaby, we'd love to see it, but don't put it on the Workday channel because things get it, not everyone wants to look at that. So, and so the participation is mandatory on everything but the water cooler chat. I taught everybody how to turn off notifications for that. But participation is mandatory for the rest of it. So we use the channel. I've been starting to use polling a lot more. And that way we can stay engaged. We can, we of course have our monthly purchasing meetings, and cameras must be on for that. And then just today I started a new hotline. It's called the purchasing hotline. And I polled everybody for what they would like to see, but essentially it's the virtual version of popping your head, going down the hallway and popping your head in somebody's office.
Oh yeah.
So every Wednesday, I have the teams meeting, if you will. It's optional, but you can count on me being on the call every Wednesday from 2 to 3 p.m. and my manager possibly. So if I'm out, my manager will be on. We could work in total silence for an entire hour. That's fine, but I'm here. So if you want to unmute yourself and say, "Hey, Berri, I got a quick question," or "Man, not Workday, I don't want to pick on Workday, but the VPN is just knocked off. Anybody else have a problem?" And so I said, you don't have to talk, but it's basically, I'm here if you need me, and just unmute yourself, or I'll unmute myself and ask a quick question. "Hey, does everybody know? I just came across this little tip. I want to make sure you guys know about that." And so that's just, we're starting that tomorrow or Wednesday.
It sounds like my son's study hall. My son's online school, it's an online high school, and they have a study hall. Same thing. They just go in and mute themselves and do work. But if they had a question, their teacher is there, or their other students. So it kind of sounds like that, but for the adult world.
Before the pandemic, when I didn't have as large of a team. It was just 9 of us. We had at the end of the hallway, we had what we affectionately called our hospitality cart. And we actually had like a crash cart, but it had candy and cakes and all the, somebody one time made some homemade ice cream. And And everybody knew, not just my department, but every other department in the building knew they could come down and see what's on the hospitality cart. So I missed that. I missed that option for that camaraderie. So I really, if you follow the Enneagram, I'm a type 2, I'm a classic 2, and I want everyone to be together. I want to be needed. And so I'm an ENFJ, all the things. So I really needed to find a way to keep the team more cohesive, because I feel like we will take care of our patients so much better. We always take care of our customers better, but for us, our customers are patient. We are 1 degree of separation from the patient. We can directly impact patient care. And I feel like a lack of cohesion in a department can really make the difference in how even a patient is cared for. So this to me is just as essential as making sure you get that purchase order out the door and we get the OR supplies in the next morning. So
that's a very important department you're in. It's not just, it's a very important, it really makes or breaks, it can make or break a whole hospital room, right? If the OR doesn't have what they need, or the ambulance, or, that's not good, right? We went through that with the pandemic. We were short supplies, and you heard about it all the time. So it's really important. You guys are kind of like the base of the chain of what keeps things going.
We are. Absolutely. A lot of people don't realize that. And I would like to say that throughout the whole pandemic, we never canceled 1 case because we were short on supplies. So we're very proud of the work that we did. It was incredibly difficult. We searched high and low across the globe, and I'm so proud of the team that we have. And no task was too big. They turned themselves inside out. And they truly do. I have no turnover in my department. They'll probably, fingers crossed, they'll just retire from the department. But I know she wouldn't mind me sharing. I have 1 employee who, the week of everyone going home, she had just found out that she had a very aggressive form of cancer, and was so right before we shut our doors, our administrative doors, my team gathered in my office, and I shared with them the news, and one of them asked if we could pray, and I said, if you want to pray, you can pray in here. And so and then they all went home. Well, fast forward a few months, go live for Workday is August 1st. She's now going through chemo, and I said, look, I will go out to your house. I'll stay in 1 room and you stay in the other. Your husband can kind of be the go-between, and I'll teach you Workday because you have to be on site for a go live.
Yeah, right.
And
right,
I said,
right.
I said, I don't want you to risk anything. And she says, no. She says, I'm coming in. And she came in, no hair, bladder in a bag on her side, comes in, and I needed a minute.
Star. Yeah, what a rock
I said,
star.
give me a minute, because this is, and that's the dedication. That is one example of the dedication of the Prisma Health staff. That's every one of them. They will show up. They're showing up for their team, they're showing up for me, and they're showing up for their patient. And so I'm very, very, very proud of the team that we have.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love every second of that. How is she feeling? Is she feeling a little bit
wonderful
better?
She's the port was finally taken out a few months ago, and her hair is grown back beautifully. She's a little firecracker. They've done a case study on her.
Wow.
She's just phenomenal. She's our little firecracker.
That's a great success story. I love hearing that, because it's a scary time.
Yeah.
I think
she went through the surgery. So the bladder removal was, there were no patients. So her husband couldn't even be in there with her. So the whole time she's going through this very first part of this very long journey, and she was alone during that. And of course, depending on the situation with the clinical staff, some of them were getting COVID themselves. So, you don't have as many nurses around. You have obviously nurses, but not as many as you normally would see. And so I couldn't imagine how isolating that felt. I would talk to her or her husband every day, because, we are a family. We spend a lot of time together. And so just what she had to go through alone, and many others, but she's just a prime example. And she showed up with her cute little wig on, and I just thought, you're going to have to give me a minute. I need to be alone for a minute because I have a huge lump in my throat and I cannot talk to you right now. But the dedication is next to none. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. That is amazing. All right, here we go. So now, what is one piece of advice you can give to anyone clawing up the ranks?
Going back on my own story, it's kind of, I'm going to roll it into one big piece of advice, even though it's probably a couple, but humble thyself.
Yes.
I could use some, I'm going to not use the expletives, but you ain't squat is basically what I want to say. Because it could take something like cancer. It could take something like losing your job, a global pandemic, you name it. There are plenty of things in this world that can take you out or attempt to take you out. We have to always, no matter what position we are in, humble ourselves, because we are all maybe in different boats, but the same storm.
That's
and
right.
Learn, because of that, you have to learn how to pivot. The COVID certainly taught us, you know, if you were a fan of Friends, pivot.
Yes.
That was the word. But I had
Yep.
the fortune, in my opinion, of learning how to pivot years earlier through my job loss and my job changes. And I had to literally humble myself and start from scratch. And so learning how to reinvent yourself, how important that is, even if you get stuck in your career, reinvent
Right.
yourself. There is nothing you can't do if you just want to do it. Just reinvent, go back to school or learn something new, take an online class, but be humble, and be willing to change and be willing to start over from scratch. My now boss, but then interviewer at the time, he didn't know my skill set. He didn't, you know, I thought I was pretty great, but I have to prove that to him.
Right.
And so I would really just say, you know, for young, I can't believe I'm in a position to talk about young professionals anymore. I was once one of them, we all were. But I feel like this is part two, is we look at our career, our the ladder we're trying to climb, whatever it is, and we focus on the job, and on ranks and on letters and how many letters can I get behind my name. But for me, there is a second avenue that is just as important, and that is, what are you doing for your community? I feel like the younger generation gets it now. They're much more socially conscious, but there are two avenues for your career, and both are just as important. And what you are doing, whether you plan to stay in this community or not, what are you doing to make this place a better place today? How are you showing up? How are you volunteering? Where are you putting your time, talent, and or treasure, whatever you have to give? I know you got one of them. You've got time somewhere. What are you doing to give back to your community? And if I have two candidates back to back and they have stellar records from an educational standpoint, from a job standpoint, and one volunteers and one doesn't, I'm going with the one with a community service background, hands down. And I think sometimes people are short-sighted on the importance of that. I'll get to it. Do it now. If it is important enough for an organization, especially of this size, to actually have a line item on their budget for philanthropy, then you should have that line item, you know, in theory, for your own career. Maybe not in dollars, but in equity, in sweat equity, talent, or time. And that's what I did when I first started rebuilding my career. You know, that whole, how can you be a manager if you haven't been a manager already? How can you lead if you haven't led anybody? I thought, well, no one's going to give me a chance. So I started volunteering. And the next thing you know, I'm on boards. I'm serving on boards. I have directors reporting to me because I'm on the board. And so when I finally got to a position to be in a management, to interview for it, they said, well, have you ever managed people? I have not managed people, but I have led hundreds. Right. And that is my advice for people trying to crawl to the top.
I love that. I love that. Berri, I can't tell you thank you enough for being here and sharing all those amazing nuggets. It was way more than I thought, and I really appreciate it. And it's very exciting, and I know people are going to get things from that. I really appreciate you taking time and speaking with us. And for everybody who joined us today, I really hope that you enjoy your weekend, and thank you for meeting with us.
Thank you so much, Tina. I appreciate it. And please feel free to pass my information along if anybody's looking for career advice, or it's happened before from some of these interviews. So I'm happy to, if I can help one person help somebody else, I feel like that's why I'm here.
That's amazing. And I will tag you in this post, on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, and then it'll be seen by your connection, my connections. And I know somebody will take you up on that. You're very
Wonderful.
inspirational. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.